in Review, the show where we look at the last few days of stories from your WAB News team. I'm Alex Helmick, managing editor of WAB News, and we start with a series of high-profile shootings this week. On Friday, a gunman opened fire on the campus of Emory University, hitting the CDC building and killing a DeKalb County officer. The gunman died at the scene. Thursday night, a man shot two MARTA officers after they approached him for allegedly urinating at the 5 Point Station in downtown Atlanta. The man was later captured in Alabama. Two officers were hit, both survived. And on Wednesday, a sergeant at the Fort Stewart military base near Savannah shot and injured 5 soldiers. The shooter was tackled and detained. All 5 soldiers survived. Switching gears now, Delta Airlines officials plan to use artificial intelligence to price a fifth of its domestic flights by the end of this year. As WAB's Marlon Hyde told us, Delta says its AI will not use personal data to set personalized prices after facing some criticism from U.S. senators.
21-year-old Ariana Sims is a student at the University of Kentucky. She's visiting her home in Atlanta for the weekend. She says she usually flies Delta, but the last time she did, she paid a lot.
It was for a spring break, and it was ranging from like $450 to $500.
She wonders if her hometown airline could use artificial intelligence to offer her a ticket more suitable for a college student.
I feel like if they was able to detect that, they'd probably be like, okay, like $200, $300 is like more a good price for that.
But that is not one of the data points Delta's AI tool will be looking at, according to Lori Garrow, who leads the Air Transportation Lab at Georgia Tech. Full disclosure, Delta Airlines is one of the partners at the center. She says that the technology is an evolution of the dynamic pricing model airlines have been using for decades.
They're feeding it data like, when did you book in advance? What market are you going to? What is the weather? If you log in, maybe historically, how many bags have I done in the past?
In a statement to WABE, Delta said it never has nor plans to use AI that factors in personal information of its customers for individual offers.
It's not doing things like feeding it data like, what was my search history, or what is the zip code I live in, or what is my address? How old am I?
Some U.S. senators sent a letter to Delta asking for more details about the AI expansion. They worried that information like social media activity, financial status, and biometric data could find their way into the AI pricing tool. Here's Lori Garrow again.
This is viewed as sort of the wave of the future.
She says about 20 airlines worldwide are already using or looking into AI pricing technology. Marlon Hyde, WABE News.
Georgia clinics that care for low-income patients are looking for ways to collaborate and mitigate their expected funding losses under the Republican tax and spending law. The so-called Big Beautiful Bill slashes federal funding for a number of health programs, including Medicaid. WABE's Jess Mador had the details.
Health advocates and clinic directors gathered in Atlanta to discuss the cuts and strategize. Laura Colbert with Georgians for a Healthy Future says community health centers that rely on federal funding could be hit hardest.
Given the federal policy landscape, given that federal funding, which is a majority of funding in the state of Georgia and across the country, will be going down, it is going to be very hard to grow in that environment.
Sustaining the healthcare system is a priority, says Thomasville Republican Darlene Taylor. She says she's pushing her fellow lawmakers on this ahead of next year's legislative session.
Get up, put our big girl britches on, and go do something about it. That's actually what we're trying to do, finding ways we can find other dollars.
The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office estimates the budget bill will leave another 10 million people uninsured nationwide. Jess Mador, WABE News.
Advocates for the Chattahoochee River National Recreation Area say federal cuts to the Park Service are causing confusion and might hinder park maintenance. WAB's Marissa Mecki had more.
Running along the Chattahoochee River, a lot of Atlantans don't realize it's part of the National Park Service.
This park is chronically underfunded and understaffed.
That's Brittany Jones, the executive director of the Chattahoochee National Park Conservancy, a nonprofit that works hand in hand with local National Park Service employees to maintain the 7,000-acre park that winds through 9 cities and 4 counties. But she says recent cuts might only make the situation worse. In January, the federal government instituted a hiring freeze for the Park Service. Around 5 positions have gone unfilled and new positions canceled. like a tribal liaison hired in coordination with those indigenous to the park area.
But now the position doesn't exist.
Jones says visitors probably won't feel the blow immediately. She says the National Park Service has been told to prioritize staying open.
You can't close your visitor center. To the visitor, it should appear business as usual. Everything looks good.
But there's a lot of uncertainty about how the cuts will play out for the Chattahoochee Park. From the piecemeal information the Park Service employees and her office are receiving,
we never really get the full picture.
She says maintenance might be harder to keep up with fewer staff and less money.
We're going to feel it on the trails, definitely.
As a partner organization, Jones says the Chattahoochee National Park Conservancy can also step up and help fill in gaps where it can through fundraising.
We can act more nimbly and flexibly. We can just spend money a bit easier.
And she says the park's many volunteers will continue showing their support through service. The Park Service did not respond to requests to comment for this story. Marissa Mecki, WABE News.
Well, one of the first things President Donald Trump did when he took office was cancel contracts with nonprofits that help refugees when they first come to the United States. Since then, groups in Atlanta have scrambled to raise money to help. One of those nonprofits is the Islamic Circle of North America, or ICNA Relief. The group works with any refugees, but they focus on fundraising from Atlanta's Muslim community. WAB immigration reporter Emily Wu Pearson spoke with Imam Samik Sahadat with ICNA Relief about how they pull it off.
Can you tell me about the refugee services ICNA provides?
Refugee service, we have served 18,350 refugees. Refugee rental assistance was 347,000. Utility assistance was 13,000.
Refugee rental assistance and utility assistance stands out to me because refugees are usually given a one-time lump sum of money and then they're on their own. Can you talk to me about how this works?
Our community is now entrusting us with donations, and in Islam, Muslims have to give 2.5% of their wealth, right? So they don't have a choice. Now, if they decide to cheat it, then that's up to them. But they don't have a choice but to give this money away. You know, we reach out to these donors and says, look, either it's mosques or it's institutions that are collecting this zakat, and we call it zakat. We go to the community and we said, look, this is the need we have. This is how much people we're serving. Just in Ramadan, you have to do what you call zakatul fitr. And that money, that's to help the poor and needy families. And that money should only be given in Ramadan. Last year in Georgia, we gave $109,000. That's what the community entrusted us with. And we give that back out to the poor and needy. And that's how we're able to help with the rent and utility assistance.
And ICNA doesn't do the resettlement, right? It's help once people are here?
In Georgia, they're already here, they already got settled, they came through a resettlement agency. What we're helping them is to get accustomed with society. So a lot of social adjustment takes place. So we enact certain classes for them here. It can be tax workshop, it can be road safety, it can be driver's eds. We recently had insurance workshop, right? How to understand insurance, what are the different types of insurance. So there's so many different workshops we are having with them to teach them how to be socially adjust here in the United States, but more so in Georgia, because we have thousands of refugees that have been placed here.
The nonprofit also helps people with their immigration cases. And Sahadat says ICNA has been helping with temporary protected status cases, or TPS, for people who are refugees who had to leave their country quickly, and also special immigrant visas, or SIVs, for refugees who aided the U.S. military.
When you're talking about immigration and legal issues, right now it's the TPS for the Ukrainians, right, to renew their TPS services. And of course, the Afghans, SIV holders, and so many others within those categories, the adjustments of their applications and things like that. So we're helping them with all of this. Some of them are receiving letters now of have to go back home. In those extraneous cases, then we have people that we have to refer back out to.
ICNA also does general community help, not just for refugees and immigrants. What does that look like here, and how is a nonprofit able to keep up with all that help?
Last year in Georgia, we have helped serve in the hunger prevention program 46,870 individuals. 82,128 pounds of meat we distributed. And so hot meals served 8,900. How many pounds of food and meat distributed? 1.6 million pounds of food we distribute in 2024. 25 distribution sites we have monthly. Every one of us have our part to play in society. no matter which NGO you come in from. And sometimes we duplicate our efforts, which is fine. There's enough to go around in the pot, And we have a belief system in us as Muslims that whatever God has written for you, no man can take a penny more, neither a penny less. It's written for you, it's written for you, right? But we got good at collaboration. That's how ICNA Relief was able to grow to that capacity.
Emily Wu Pearson there with Imam Samiq Sahadat of ICNA Relief. You're listening to WABE's Week in Review with me, Alex Helmick. Well, this week marked the start of school for many districts around Metro Atlanta, including Clayton County. School staff there say they're hoping to keep a positive and distraction-free environment now that classes have started. WABE's Dormaya Vance checked it out.
On the first day of school at Michelle Obama STEM Elementary Academy, parents, students, and staff are welcomed with high energy, music, and school color decorations.
This is my son's second year at Michelle Obama.
That's parent Kateria Stewart. She wants her son, who's starting kindergarten, to continue improving his cognitive skills.
His reading from day one has improved tremendously from pre-K. Kindergarten, I can see him doing a lot more.
CCPS Superintendent Anthony Smith greeted students as they arrived. Smith says he wants to continue boosting student achievement this year through academic innovation and a cell phone-free classroom.
Now, we've always had a strong policy on electronic devices. We've already begun that work, and we're well on our way to ensuring that our students have a focus.
Earlier this year, Governor Brian Kemp signed a statewide ban on the use of personal devices in the classroom. The bans will take effect no later than next summer and are required for students K through 8. Clayton County already has a policy in place restricting cell phones in classrooms. Michelle Obama Academy computer science teacher Makoya Bates believes that no phones improve how students develop.
Molding their mindset, and so making them into our critical thinkers, our problem solvers. So you don't necessarily need a phone or a device for that.
The district is making other changes to the way it uses technology. It recently decided to limit school-issued take-home devices like laptops and iPads to high school students only. Dormaya Vance, WABE News.
Wednesday marked the 60th anniversary of the passage of the Federal Voting Rights Act of 1965. President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the landmark legislation after a hard-fought campaign led by Georgia civil rights icons like Martin Luther King Jr. and the late Congressman John Lewis. WABE's Sam Greenglass brought us the story.
John Lewis was 25 when he helped lead a march for voting rights from Selma to Montgomery in the spring of 1965. But as the marchers attempted to cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge, they were violently attacked by state troopers on what became known as Bloody Sunday.
We were beaten, tear gas, some of us was left bloody. Our country will never, ever be the same because of what happened on this bridge.
The violence and the persistence of the marchers helped compel President Johnson to act.
Because it's not just Negroes, but really it's all of us who must overcome the crippling legacy of bigotry and injustice. And we shall overcome.
He signed the Voting Rights Act that August, banning literacy tests and other barriers to the ballot box. Black voter participation skyrocketed, and more black candidates were elected. But Democrats like Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock say that legacy is under threat. He's sponsoring a reauthorization of the law called the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. Outside the U.S. Capitol last week, Warnock said he's been thinking lately of a story told by Ambassador Andrew Young about a meeting with President Johnson.
Dr. King began to say, Mr. President, we need a voting rights law. The president said, I know you're right. I just don't have the power. And Dr. King looked at the staff and he said, well, if the president doesn't have the power, I guess we're going to have to go and find the president some power.
But with Republicans in Congress arguing the Voting Rights Act is no longer needed, finding the power to renew it continues to prove elusive. Sam Greenglass, WABE News.
Finally today, experts at the State Department of Natural Resources want to help coastal communities maintain Georgia's 100 miles of shoreline by fighting erosion and building resiliency against hurricanes. And they have new guidelines to do that, not relying on concrete and steel, but instead using living plants and animals. WABE's Melissa Fado had more.
These kinds of projects aren't new to Georgia. There's about a dozen along the coast and more in the works, but they've never been standardized like this.
So it's a technique used for erosion control and bank stabilization that enhances that natural connectivity between the land and the water.
That's DNR wetlands biologist Megan Angelina Crisp.
It's constructed using the placement of native materials like plants and oyster material where new oysters can recruit.
The roots of these plants and the bulk of oysters help reinforce the soil and create that buffer between land and sea. And because they help enhance the local habitat, it's a more sustainable alternative to concrete bulkheads, which can have serious drawbacks.
When we have hurricanes come through, we have seen a lot of bulkheads or seawalls get damaged from these storms.
Meanwhile, living shorelines have shown to be resilient to storms, and their maintenance is minimal, she says. Most existing living shorelines are on public property, but Angelina Crisp hopes in the future the state can offer resources for private property owners. Melissa Fato, WABE News.
That's all for the show this week. My thanks to the WABE News team for all the great work. I'm Alex Helmick. Thank you for supporting WABE and listening to The Week in Review.